Okay, well, I think we are about to get started. I'll give everyone a quick minute to get into the webinar, and then we will jump right in. Awesome. Well, I'm just going to give us a quick intro before I hand you all over to our amazing panelists today. But as I'm sure you all saw in the invitation, this is the first of hopefully many webinars that we will be hosting with Amec in the North America chapter. We're kicking off this new mentorship series called Guided Growth. So each quarter, different members of the Amec North American Chapter will host mentorship webinars on different topics and challenges many of us face throughout our careers. This first session is focused on understanding the other side. We have a panel of a mix of in-house and agency and vendor professionals who will give us some insight into their careers, the challenges they face, and what they wish the other side knew when fostering better working relationships with one another. If you have any other mentorship topics you'd like us to consider for future webinars, or if you'd like to host a future webinar yourself, feel free to reach out to me. I'll drop my email in the chat so you can reach out to me directly. But we're really excited about this new series. Hopefully everyone feels like that they can learn something from this. And we'd love any feedback that you have after this first session as well to help us continue to grow on this series in the future. So with that, I will hand it over to the host for today's panel, Stacey Jaffe.
Thanks, Lauren. Team, we're so excited to get this group of experts together for a really helpful and discursive conversation on career development and the journey within the agency and in-house experience. And so we have some great questions and discussion points for today's session, but I'd love to do a really quick intro for our panelists before we jump right in. So Jane, I'll hand it to you for a quick intro. If you could just share a little bit about your career history to date, and everyone's going to share a little bit of nugget of wisdom that they have or pro tip for in-house or agency relationships.
Perfect. My name is Jane Quigley. I am the president of Viral Moment, which is focused on social video analytics. For the 12 years before that, I actually was working in text analytics, and I have been working with social analytics since 2008. So I am probably one of the only people on this webinar that actually was in marketing before the internet actually started. So I've seen the whole wide and breadth of marketing come into play. My pro tip is that it's going to sound trite, but building that relationship through communication is really important. And while process and focus is really, that's part of the pillar of communication, it's also finding where you guys can meet together and making sure that each other can you're getting what you need from the relationship in a way that's very personal and curated.
Love that. Thanks, Dan. Courtney, over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Portner. I am on the Communications Measurement and Insights team at McDonald's, leading our issues and trend specific work streams. So I've been at McDonald's for about a year and a half now. I actually started my career on the agency side. I was at Edelman as part of the data and intelligence team, was there for about 5 years before going in-house at Molson Coors, where I was in more of a traditional consumer insights and foresights role, and then wound my way back up at McDonald's in more of a comms focused role. And I would say my pro tip is really thinking of your agency as a true extension of your team. I think both from the agency side and from the in-house side, the most successful relationships I've ever seen or been a part of are ones where you're really working hand in hand with your agencies every single day and really treating them and viewing them as a true extension of your team.
Love that. Thanks so much, Courtney. Brittany, over to you now.
Hi, everyone. My name's Brittany Paxman, and I am at Point 600. Point 600 is a communications consulting firm that specializes in data and analytics. So we are on the agency side, but unlike some of the other agencies, we only do measurement and analytics. So I'm really glad to be here. I've spent most of my career on the consulting and agency side, working with really large brands, including McDonald's, which Courtney just mentioned, but working across industries. I have a lot of aviation experience, a lot of travel, tourism, and a lot of regulated industry experience, as well as some of the more traditional industries that you might be working with. So I'm really excited to be here. My pro tip is that the outsider perspective that an agency brings is a feature and not a bug. I think a lot of times in-house folks think you don't understand my business enough, and they want you to know every single thing, or you want to know the alphabet soup of a company and what every single acronym inside of a company means. And it's actually a benefit that the agency doesn't know all of those things, because it forces clarity. It forces you to think about if what you're doing is the right thing, and brings additional perspective that you may not have if you've been kind of inside a company being indoctrinated, if you will, by all of the things about that company. So see that independent perspective as a feature, not a bug.
Love that. And Jonathan, over to you.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here. I am head of insights and measurement for enterprise communications here at Fidelity Investments. So my team tracks and evaluates both our internal and external communications. And I've been with Fidelity for just over 18 years now. Before that, my background was in primary research, doing strategic research for a number of consultancies. Fidelity was one of my clients, and I ended up moving in-house a while ago. My pro tip, similar to what Brittany said, is push me. I want the agency to be kind of a coach and push me to be better, and tell me what I don't know, and bring that outsider, insight, and tell me when I'm wrong and push back, because we all kind of get comfortable, and I need somebody to kind of like give me that little push.
That's great. And I'll be your moderator for today's session. My name is Stacy Jaffe. I'm a Senior Vice President of Analytics at Ketchum, and I've been with the agency for about 8 years, but this is my first communications role. I have a primary research background as well, and what I love about being in this role is getting to feel the tangible outputs of analytics in real time. It's been a really fun part of my career journey from primary to communications research. And my pro tip is just ask questions. We do that every day in our day-to-day world. We're analyzing responses to questions all the time, making sure that we have a really clear picture of what is being asked of us can only come to fruition when we ask questions. So don't be afraid to ask, because you'll get clarity and more, and it's a really good way to build relationship. For the first session portion of our panel, we're going to have some open discussion on agency and career, agency and in-house relationships for the group. So I'd love to jump in. Firstly, how would you all define a successful agency/client relationship? So Jane, I'll turn it over to you. How would you define that relationship as a successful one?
I find it, you can measure a successful relationship when it grows. So if you're still doing the initial work that you were always doing, that means that you're put into a niche, and that it may not be progressing, or that the trust isn't building, the relationship isn't building. So as a relationship grows, and as more as the insights, analytics, metrics are getting pushed through more of the organization, building that sense of trust in what you're doing, that's exactly where the success comes from.
From I'd love to hear the perspective, maybe Courtney, from the in-house side. How do you define a successful agency/client relationship?
Yeah, I think going back to kind of my pro tip in the opening is really viewing your agency partners as a true extension of your team. And with that, really making sure you have regular and kind of clear and open lines of feedback. I think it goes both ways, right? Like when feel like we're not getting what we need from the agencies, we can deliver that feedback, but also it's important for us to hear what the agencies need from us. Like, Jonathan said in the opening, it's really easy to get lost in kind of our own world or day to day. So we need to take the time as well to say, hey, agency team, I just got this piece of context from our leaders about shifting priorities. Like that is the type of thing that we need to be passing along to our teams. And I think sometimes it can get lost in the day to day and just executing the work. So really just making sure you have those regular touch points of feedback and making sure you just have very, very clear lines of communication with your team.
And Courtney, I just want to, as you have that relationship, sometimes you get so close, you can almost finish each other's sentences. And I find while that's great, and it's a great shortcut to have, what I'm taking away from yours is sometimes you can stop communicating, you think on both sides. And what I like about what you just said, it's keeping that kind of communication more open. So it's great to have that kind of bond, but I love what you said about that.
Yeah. And I think like we're in constant Teams chat contact, like we're in constant contact. So sometimes it can be easy for me to just be like, oh, well, I heard this piece of information, so they should already have like expecting them to read my mind, kind of like I do with my husband sometimes. Exactly. And that gets me in trouble too. So
I was just saying, it's like relationships with everyone else that we have in our families. We treat it the same, but setting up the boundaries and those touch points, I think is such an important point you made.
Yeah, it's funny. It sounds a little like couples therapy, right?
Yes.
Like open communication, be respectful of the relationship and kind of grow with us. But I will say it's important that we don't get so comfortable with each other that we stop growing, right?
Yes.
I think that's a real danger, right? You kind of become complacent and you just think like, especially if it's a long term, you've had a relationship for 3 years, 4 years, you want to keep some tension. Maybe that's not the right word, but it's still you don't want to just be an order taker or get so comfortable that like we're not pushing each other anymore. So going back to my pro tip.
Yeah, and I would say a successful relationship in this context is really defined by unique value add. And what I mean by that is that each party is bringing something to the table that the other one isn't. And so I think the least successful ones are if it's just a straight staff augmentation. Like if you just need more bodies, that's a lot lower value than if you're saying your agency is bringing a unique value proposition, a skill set, knowledge that your in-house team doesn't have. And then vice versa, the in-house team should be experts in their business and experts on the priorities of their business. And that should create a really beautiful partnership. And so when I think about success, it's that there is a unique value add that hopefully the in-house team can't find in-house and isn't going to another agency for.
What do you wish your agency or client counterparts understood about your role in your day-to-day?
I think, and I've been thinking about this since we were talking about it earlier. I think that and it would be trite to say, I know that the people who work for me might say that they wish that they knew that there were more than one client and that there was limited time. I think for me, not getting the whole picture, not understanding where other agencies or the kind of other metrics that they're getting so we could be more supportive. I think sometimes in-house keeps a very almost transactional view sometimes of where the work that you're doing. And if they just opened up, because they're afraid of being pitched a lot of times, and if they just gave a more open view, you could find new ways of supporting them that neither of you guessed at.
Brittany or Jonathan, from your perspective, that sometimes it can feel like in-house teams are keeping things close to their chest. How does that resonate from your perspective?
Yeah, I think for me, something, and this is not a McDonald's specific thing, I think it's more of just an insight specific thing, is a lot of times when we are having to go to leaders or go to our counterparts, whether it's in marketing, comms, et cetera, insights are not always welcome with open arms. So we need to come in ready to like defend what we're presenting and also say, and this is how you need to use it. I think what's just important is when we're providing feedback or maybe being really nitpicky about methodology or how things are being presented, it's because we're about to go walk into a room with leaders, our counterparts, and I don't want to say we're getting attacked always, but oftentimes there's a lot of questions and there's a lot that we need to kind of push back and be able to validate and action for those teams. So I think just keeping that in mind as we're going through projects and kind of thinking through the bigger picture, I would say that's my biggest point there.
Yeah, I underline that. I was going to say the same thing. Remember that we're kind of in the middle, right? So we're liaison between the agency and our internal partners. And in my case, we've got a fairly complex business with a lot of different business lines, and they each have their own unique needs. And so what works for one of my partners may not work for the other. So if it seems like I'm coming at you with like a lot of different things, that's why. I'm not being difficult.
Jane or Brittany, did you have anything else you'd want to add there? I think it's a really important point of view that we have to keep in mind is sometimes we as agency or vendor partners are sometimes so in the weeds that transcribing all of the methodology and details can take a lot of time, and making sure that you guys feel armed and ready to defend work to your peers is a perspective that I hadn't really thought of before.
Yeah, I would say it's so helpful to hear the pressures that the clients are facing.
Mhm.
I think too often clients don't share that with us.
Mhm.
Like they just say, oh, I have to have this completely buttoned up. But if you can share that experience, if in-house can say, hey, I'm about to walk into a room that's going to be pretty tough. That's why I'm pushing on these things. It's something we ask about all the time. We say, what's the motivation for this? What's the purpose of the meeting you're about to walk into? We try really hard not to just deliver the insights, but to create final deliverables that hopefully the client can just take and not have to do a whole lot of extra work on. Not that that's always what's happening, but that's certainly our goal, because we want to take as much off the client's plate as humanly possible. And a big part of that is understanding what pressures are you facing internally that we have no visibility to. So I think that that's really excellent. And I would just really encourage in-house teams to be willing to share the political dynamics that you're working with your agencies.
A lot of times when I'm going through the brief, the last question where you're like, what does success look like? I try to phrase it. I also have a follow-up is, what are you not telling me? Like, what is leadership coming down on you about that I need to know that would make things better? And that's where you get a little bit of a laugh, and it's like, oh, right. And then you get the truth a lot of times. And I think that that's an important question to ask.
I love that. For this group, what does career growth look like in your role or your experience? So for folks that are watching this webinar, what's the difference between an in-house or an agency career path? I
can start this one off. So So coming from starting on the agency side, I think, you know, when you're an agency, the automatic career trajectory is up. How can I get promoted upwards and how quickly can I do that? Where I think it was a big awakening coming to the in-house side is the roles are a lot more limited. So that upward movement is a lot harder. It's a lot longer. And really what you need to focus on is more of that lateral movement and some of the different experiences that you can get. And, you know, like I said, I started in a PR agency and then jumped into a consumer insights role that was in service of marketing partners or even new product development. So was able to take some of those skills and transfer them and grow laterally and get different experiences that have been really helpful in my career. And even now at McDonald's, it's thinking about, okay, within global communications or within our broader impact team, how can my skill set be applied to different functions outside of insights? Insights in-house is a very, very, very specialized role. There's only usually a handful of us within the organization. So that lateral movement and taking on stretch assignments, new types of work is huge.
Super insightful. Thanks, Courtney. Anyone else want to jump in on that?
I think I'd also offer another line of demarcation of not just in-house agency, but also size of organization. And, you know, if you're size of team even, so not even necessarily how big the company is, but how big is the team? I think in smaller teams, there's a lot more opportunity for anything that you want to do because so many fewer people that have those specific skill sets. And so if you're willing to go gain a skill set, you get to do that thing if you want. But that means that there's a lot less clarity on career path. There's usually not a very clear path on where you're going to go next. That ambiguity comes with the smallness. So that's kind of some of the pro and con trade-off. And then I definitely agree. I mean, I'm a big fan of getting some agency experience when you can, because I think it forces you to wear a lot of different hats. And if someone's watching this, they're probably a measurement or analytics professional. And I would just encourage you not to think of yourself as only an analytics professional. I mean, at my firm, everyone is expected to also be a project manager. Everyone is also expected to have great client service and account service skills and to be organized. All of those additional skills that I do think you really gain either way, those are essential to your career path. And I think too often, especially early on, it's like, well, I just have to get really, really good at coding, or I have to get really, really good at building dashboards, or I have to get really, and actually have to get really good at being a trusted advisor. And trust comes with meeting your deadlines, doing what you say you're going to do, having great project plans. Those additional skills, I think, are also really, really important to career growth. So I just kind of wanted to mention that when we're talking about the career path.
And I just want to piggyback on that, because we both, Brittany and I, from a couple of different ways we've interacted in the past, we both come from smaller teams, and the ability to wear a whole bunch of different hats. That can be when people just getting into, maybe they haven't been part of a startup or they haven't been part of a smaller team. That can be overwhelming, the wearing of many hats, and making sure that from leadership that there is like clear mentorship opportunities, or you know, your first years do this and your second years do this, just to bring them up so that they're not feeling overwhelmed with not just the opportunity, but the workload. And understanding all of the different functions, I think, is really key and stops churn.
Yeah, I'd pick up on, from my perspective, pick up on both what Courtney and Brittany said. You know, I'm a support function in a larger communications group, so there's a ceiling for me as well, right? But to Brittany's point, like, don't pigeonhole yourself just as the data guy, right? Because that's a path to nowhere. You know, you're a problem solver, you're an analytical thinker, and, you know, so that opens up roles in strategy and planning and potentially, you know, a lot of other things.
I love that. And I love the diverse experiences that you've all had to get to where you are. whether they're trying new roles or stretching your skill set. I think that's super important for, folks at any stage of their career journey. I'm going to turn some questions to our in-house experts, but obviously please feel free to collaborate within these questions as well. But Jonathan and Courtney, what do you wish you saw more from your agency and vendor partners when delivering projects? We talked a little bit about and making sure that the work is totally buttoned up, but beyond that, what do you wish you saw more of?
Well, I mean, I started with my pro tip was push me, right? So that for sure. But I mean, you are seeing what other clients are doing, right? And and I see a little bit of that, but mostly we're kind of myopic, right? We're navel gazing and we know what we're doing. So I want that perspective. I want to know what other people are doing. I'm not a big fan of the term best in class, right? But I worked with one research company. I won't name them, but what they did really well was they had this monthly series where they would have a virtual meeting, and they'd get 50 of their clients together, and there would be a topic for discussion. It would be an hour long, and we'd all get on a Zoom call, and the vendor would start by sharing some insights on that specific topic that they had that was recent, right? And then we'd break into smaller groups and we'd have a discussion and just share, what we learned, what we're thinking about it, what our plans were related to that topic. And then we'd break out again and people would kind of share what their small groups talked about. And they were all kind of non-competing. They were good about making sure I wasn't in the room with Schwab, right? But it was enormously helpful. And then I made connections with those people outside of that group as well. So recognize that's a really valuable commodity that you have.
Yeah. And I would build on what Jonathan's saying of push us, even if it is some report that we've been doing every day for the last 5 years, push us to take that step and be how can we up level this? How can we make it just a little bit better without, completely reinventing the wheel? But what are the things that we can be doing that we're maybe just not having the time to think about that could help us show up better to the people that we work with? And then the next thing I would add, and Brittany hit on this in the upfront, is context, context, context. And I think, my role right now is really crisis issues focused. So when the house is on fire for us, what is that context that you can provide that can help bring the outside world in? Because to us and everyone within the 4 walls at McDonald's, this is the biggest thing and everyone's kind of freaking out about it. However, if we take a step back and are able to say to our leaders, yes, this is what it looks like for us, might not be great right now, but to provide some context, this is only 5% of the total conversation about McDonald's right now. Something as simple as that is something that I think can get lost sometimes. And, we are in our own world. So helping bring that outside world in is so, so, so helpful.
Jonathan and Courtney, just help us understand from your day-to-day work, how does comms measurement and insight development fit into your wider workload? How much emphasis do you place on that versus all the other things that you guys are juggling at any given moment?
Yeah, I can jump in quickly on this and then pass it over to Jonathan. So ironically, I am on the communications measurement and insights team. So pretty much in title there, but I would say in reality, it's probably about 50% of the work that our team is doing. So we have, our traditional comms measurement, we have our reputation measurement, we have crisis and issues measurement, but a lot of what we're getting pushed to do more now is more future looking. How can we be pulling insights that are helping informing our planning and strategy, not only for our global comms team, but for our broader global impact team? How can we understand sentiment towards our brand given all that's going on, in the political landscape? What are some of these data points and insights that we can have to help equip our leaders with kind of the reality of the outside world and what might be impacting our business? So I would say it's probably about a 50-50 split for us. And then on top of the more like immediate future looking, we also partner with our foresights team. So how can we be using insights that they're collecting to be even thinking further out, whether it be 5 years, 10 years. So when our leadership team has planning sessions, they're using insights to help prioritize the work our team's going to be doing.
Yeah, I'd say very similar, right? Because I'm, on the measurement team. It's my entire job. But what I'm also being asked to do more of is, part of the corporate affairs group that I'm in is public policy and government relations, right? And so understanding, like that world as well, and how our communications and reputation impact, that entire world, right? Whether it's at federal level, whether it's kind of more regional or local, and what role that plays in the umbrella of our communications, including marketing and social and all that other stuff in corporate reputation.
It's a silly question because obviously we're all measurement professionals, but there's so much more that we're doing that we probably don't even give ourselves credit for at first blush. So it's really helpful to hear how all the moving parts fit together. For agency folks, I'd love to ask you guys a few questions. Namely, maybe the best first question is, what are some things that great clients do, whether kicking off a new project or just fostering relationship building? What's the hallmark of a great client?
I have client relationships that are going on a decade. And I think that the more that you again build those relationships, but the honesty, when they're going through something personal, when you can support them in ways that they weren't expecting, where you could delight them with different things, just, making sure that they feel not just the extension of your team, but you always have their back, I think is really important. And the clients who could be that transparent and open with you are the really successful relationships.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. I would add maybe a couple of tactics that I see great clients do that are helpful. So I have 2 clients who do an annual agency day where they fly in all of their agency teams and have like a kickoff meeting. And that is so helpful because too many clients keep all their agencies separate because they think that they're competitors or that they won't play nice in the sandbox. And actually, we really want to collaborate with each other. And so I have a client who I regularly talk to their PR team, even without the client. We have a great relationship. So I think that allowing your partners to be partners to each other is something great clients do. And it's something great agencies do. When an agency wants to do all of the things and won't collaborate with other agencies, that's a problem in my view. So that's one thing that they do that's really successful. The other thing that I think is it's so rewarding and really motivates you when you feel like you're having true impact. Yeah. And so when my clients say, we presented that analysis you did to the CEO and we changed this decision because of it, that will fuel us for 6 months you know, and so I think that great clients remember that the compensation the agency getting is sure you're paying a bill, but that's not what motivates a lot of the people. And so remembering that your agencies are human and to showcase how the work that they're doing matters is very, very motivating to getting great outcomes.
Jonathan and Courtney, I saw you guys nodding your head throughout Jane and Brittany's points. Anything that you'd want to reflect on within that?
Yeah, we actually just started hosting on-site working sessions with our agencies at the beginning of the year and in the back half of the year to bring everyone together. And we did it earlier this year to say, hey, here are our priorities for the year. Here's what we're working towards. So everyone has a shared understanding of what we're being tasked with. And to Brittany's point, agencies that work together not only help facilitate better work for us, but it takes some of the work off our plate too. Even if it saves me an email to loop in my agency partners together, and I know that they can just connect and run and go with it, that makes our lives so much easier. So would definitely reiterate that that is a huge, huge way to foster collaboration across the teams.
Yeah, I'd say we don't do that enough. We do a little bit of it, but I'm taking inspiration from this conversation.
I love that.
And Jonathan, I did want to mention what you had said about, being part of a group of different clients in the same room. I also find it very helpful. A lot of times in social listening, leadership doesn't understand what social listening is about, or as people are going through their careers, they don't know what the next step, because the company doesn't know. I find by introducing clients to each other, they finally have a person who understands their day-to-day of what they do. And then they could also talk about, what's your next step going to be? They could start building out their career plans with each other.
Absolutely. Yeah.
From an agency perspective, with that in mind, to facilitate that, collaboration and shared learning, what types of information do you need from clients that you aren't always getting consistently to deliver against those expectations?
I would say, great clients are giving us a lot of information, and they're not just giving us the brief, they are giving us that motivational information as well. Like, what's the pain point of the person that you're delivering this to? Those questions. I think the clients who feel like they have to withhold, that's just not as successful. And I have a client that was kind of the situation about 18 months ago, and it was really, really challenging to be successful. And you could tell that it came from a culture of a hierarchical sharing of knowledge.
Yes.
That was internal to that company, and they kind of saw their agency partners as the lowest rung on that hierarchy. And so I do think it's about mutual respect, and it is about trust.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say for agencies, I think a lot about process, because my clients are giving me the information. For us to be as valuable as possible, they have to feel comfortable sharing really confidential, really sensitive information. And so inside of our agency, not only do we have like legal paperwork and all of that, but we drive a culture of cherishing that trust and really making sure that it is protected, and then building systems in place to do that. So that's a little bit separate from your question, but I think that it actually starts on the agency side to create an environment, create a business model that makes you a trustworthy partner to receive the information that you need. And then once you have that trust and confidence, I find that information flows pretty freely.
Like a safe space. Mm-hmm. Making yourself and your company a safe space, I think I believe wholeheartedly is an important foundation layer of that relationship. The other thing I was thinking is that understanding, and you touched on this a little, Brittany, on how the insights are going to be used. You know, when you get them the outcome, how are they going to be implemented? I think knowing that at the beginning can help you design a more effective report. And on top of that, also, I like to keep an insights tracker. So you could actually track how insights move throughout the organization and are either used or not used. And they can be updated as you go along and you read more things, or certain events happen. You can revisit that and update it and hopefully make them more useful.
One thing I want to build on there is I totally hear the information sharing, and it's something that we have to continuously remind ourselves to do. Unfortunately, sometimes I think in-house we don't get all of the information from our leaders. A one-off email from a leader being like, I need to know about this. Like, we need to be in the habit of asking for that additional context too, so we can pass it along to you. But something that we've started doing a little bit more over the last year is directly linking up our agency teams and the teams that we're working on projects with. So for example, our US media team might be asking for something. There's no need for me to be the middleman sometimes. Sometimes, it makes more sense to get everybody together on a call so that our agencies can hear direct from the source what they're looking for, ask those questions. I think obviously there's times that makes sense and there's times where it doesn't necessarily make sense, but I think that's something we've started doing more and more. Another example is we do a global reputation tracker twice a year. We present these reports on a broader webcast with the entire global impact team, and we have our agency partners on the line answering questions. They are the experts in this space, so being able to lean on them and kind of take that off of us and work directly with our counterparts has been really helpful for us as well.
Yeah, I'm curious because we do that too. It's similar. I don't need to be the middle person for all communication, but Jane and Brittany, does that get unwieldy sometimes, right? Because what I find is when somebody's going directly to our partner, I still get copied on all the communication, of course, but like sidebar, that partner's coming back to me and saying, is this really a priority? I'm working on this, or, didn't we already resolve this and decide not to do that? And so what's your reaction? Like, how does that work for you?
This is such a good question. There's definitely a tension there. I think there's not a one size fits all answer, but I think actually, at least in my experience, the biggest challenge is actually just scope, because the people you're putting us directly in contact with don't know what the scope is. Yeah. And they ask for something and then we say, oh, really sorry, we really want to help with that, but it's not something that we're currently scoped for. And then it feels like, oh, our agency partner is nickel and diming us, or they aren't delivering all of this value. So I think that the best solution I've seen, and this isn't a perfect solution, is, at the upfront, defining some clear guardrails, defining some clear, RACI models, and then saying, okay, in these situations, people can come straight to us. And in these other situations, not. I do think in-house teams sometimes underestimate that hiring an outside partner requires management. We try to take on as much of that management as we can, but you're not just outsourcing something, right? You're hiring a partner. And so I completely agree with that perspective. I point person who a part of their job is to manage that relationship and has visibility to everything the agency is doing. And in the autonomy model, you might be a 4 where it's, I have visibility, but I'm not going to stop you. You don't need to ask my permission. But if I see something that I don't like, I'm going to let you know. And that's where once you have that trusted relationship, that's where I found the benefit. But it's that being at least an eye on things, being an informed party.
Yes. And a lot of times what I'll do is put together a fax of working with other agencies where it's like, here's what we do, here are the scenarios, here are the questions we're often asked, here are the things that are open to discussion. And that way, it's easier for, it's kind of like a one-stop slide or a page that partners can go to and go, okay, great, we're open to having these conversations, or are in the area that you have to discuss, maybe we can open this up a little. So it just gives it gives a little context, but also some guardrails as to what those conversations can be.
I have learned so much from this session, and this has been a really fabulous discussion. So thank you guys for all of your thoughts and insights and experiences. They're super valuable and got me thinking about my own day-to-day role. I do want to turn to some Q&A that we're starting to see pop up in the chat. So I have a question for everyone and for those of you who do have backgrounds in both agency and in-house, how has one experience helped you in the other side? So understanding the other side. What have been your biggest learnings having worked on both sides of the industry?
I'll jump in. I haven't technically worked in-house, but I've been embedded a few times. So take it with a grain of salt, but I am shocked at how many meetings in-house teams have to attend. And I think that agencies often do not appreciate how bureaucratic sometimes the in-house role can be. And so when a client's not getting back to you, or they're not approving something, or they're not giving you feedback on something, it very likely is because they're sitting in 8 or 9 hours of back-to-back meetings trying to advance the work that you're doing. And so one, that just maybe means a little bit more empathy for them. But two, it also means we got to build systems and processes that take that into consideration. You can't have a 1 business day approval turnaround if that client might be in meetings all day of that business day. So just the sheer number of in-house meetings is one of the things I would say.
Also, I think that understanding corporate culture of your clients and knowing that what's being demanded of them, but also I love the meeting thing, how many meetings they're in, but also the, maybe sometimes harsh directives that they're under really can give you a little, making sure that you have that empathy and that, you're not taking things personally, or they may need to blow off steam, that you're open to that.
I would say from my side, being on the agency side, I had some really great clients and I had some really not great clients, and remembering how I felt when I was dealing with the not great clients, I think has given great perspective of like what kind of client I want to be, and what are the things that I can do to help facilitate a better relationship with my agency partners, and sharing information and really working together on solving problems. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for me, is just that empathy piece of, I've been there, I've seen some things in my agency days, and understanding like the pressure that our agency teams are under a lot of times, not only with our work, but the work of all the other clients that they're dealing with too. And just remembering that, and not losing that side of that.
We have another question in the Q&A. So for those of you who have backgrounds in both, sorry, that's repeating the same question. So here it is. If you could give your younger self, one piece of career advice, what would it be?
I would sit in every meeting I can. So if it's not your meeting, if it's someone else's meeting, sit in every meeting, learn about how your agency, learn from mentors, learn from the people above you, learn from clients, but sit there and really, take in different facets of an organization to see where, you want to go next.
Love that. Anyone else?
I would say take on stretch assignments. Like it can be hard to think about doing that when you're already so busy with the work that you're doing, but raise your hand, jump in on things, try things that are outside of your comfort zone because you can learn from those experiences and lean on them in the future.
I say that all the time. I tell myself, my teammates, just get uncomfortable and you'd be surprised at how much more capable you're giving yourself credit for. And just trying something new typically offers up a whole new horizon. And I think this conversation is really helping with that overarching big picture too. Anyone else? Advice for your younger self? We have another question in the chat. And that is, what advice would you give to someone from an agency looking to move in-house? So Jonathan, you were hired by your client. Are there any other ways that you have been able to get noticed by in-house teams, or any just advice on that career transition?
Yeah, wow, you know what? I need to think about that. Give me a minute. Maybe somebody else wants to jump in.
Yeah, I can jump in. I actually think that this is a great way to get a job, is kind of making these jumps. First thing I would say is know your non-solicitation clauses in your contracts. know what's possible and what's not possible. Set your client up to be in violation. Don't set yourself up to be in violation. I also think it really, working together is one of the best ways to build trust. And so if you are a great partner, whether you're in-house or agency, working with great people, I think it's really hard to find really great people. So doing great work, maintaining those relationships. I know, Jane has really said that quite a lot, and I couldn't agree more. I'm a process-oriented person. So I think build a little bit of process into that stuff. Like, I try to regularly reach out to people. I try to maintain those relationships even when you're not working together anymore. And I think that you kind of get what comes around. So help other people find those jobs. And then when you need the job, they're going to be willing to kind of go to bat for you. Would be some of the things I would say.
I like that. All right. So I thought a little bit about it. When you're on the vendor side, you're working with a lot of different clients. You do get to know, your direct clients. I'd say, make an effort to understand the company culture too, right? Because you may really like a particular client, but that company's culture may not fit kind of like, your personal style. So do your homework. It may look like a great place to work or something you're interested in. But, make sure it's a place you're going to thrive before you make that leap.
One thing I would add too is more around like the transition from agency side to in-house side is just go in knowing that it's going to take you like at least a year to be able to really ingrain yourself in the business and wrap your head around everything you need to know about this company. And it's very rare that I've found that, you go into an in-house role that perfectly matches all of the capabilities that you had or responsibilities that you had in your previous role. So just demonstrating that you really have that curiosity, like passion to learn, that you can learn on the job, I think is really, really important because it's a big part of the transition, I would say, when you move in-house.
Yeah, one more thing. One thing I struggled with initially moving from the vendor side in-house was delegation. I mean, I was used to doing a lot of things myself on the vendor side, and then once I got in-house, I just didn't have time to do it all. Partly as Brittany said, there's a ton of meetings, but also because, I was supposed to, kind of step back and be more of a director.
I love that. I would say like that was a similar experience I had moving from primary to communications roles is, you're in a, like that transition is so much more than just a few weeks of onboarding time. It does take a whole new like time period to learn the culture and learn the experiences of the industry. So I think that's spot on. If anyone else has questions, please drop them in the Q&A. It's the little chat bubble at the bottom of your screen next to the share button. It helps us keep tabs on everyone's questions. I have another question from someone from a pro bono perspective. Has anyone had any experiences that they can share or benefited from the skills gained via pro bono work, and how those organizations have been able to benefit from your measurement and data skills?
I can speak to that. We don't have tons of pro bono clients, but I do actually have a couple, and it's been so rewarding. Yes, emotionally rewarding to support nonprofits, but actually I feel a lot more comfortable trying new experimental things when they're not paying us a lot of money. And just being very transparent about that. And so our firm has developed a lot of improvements, a lot of efficiencies, much improved skills and structures from doing some of that work, where we're very transparent and honest with the client, saying, hey, this is a new motion for both of us. Let's give it a try. So I think that's been so rewarding. And then for us, we've been able to develop that into a capability that we then can sell to other clients. So I think that's, if you're on the agency side and you're able to do that, it's a really great way to build capabilities, as long as you're transparent. I'm not saying to go run wild in, inappropriate experiments with people who really need support, but more when you go in and you're saying, all right, we're both trying something new together.
I love that.
I really enjoyed today's discussion. This has been so insightful. I love that we got some agency and in-house folks together to share their points of view. We're just about at the end of the hour together, but if anyone else has any additional questions, we'll make sure to answer them via follow-ups. The webinar for folks that weren't able to attend live will be available in about 24 hours. So we'll send around that link for your teammates that would like to watch at a later date. And we're just really grateful for your time. I've learned so much today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.